So the money is a really interesting conversation. Yes, we need it, but it's not always a measure of success, but it depends to the individual as well.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Karin Ovari. It's been quite a bit. You were previously episode 479 of the 12-minute convos. The last time we spoke, it was 2 years, 8 months, 13 days, and 20 hours ago.
Don't be afraid to try anything at least once, because then you can make an informed decision.
That was then. This is now. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm fine. The weather is good up here in Scotland, so it's always a good day to start.
That's wonderful. That's good. Well, the first time we spoke, you were just 2 weeks from becoming the conversationalist specialist, if I'm not mistaken. Did that go through?
Okay, yes. I was certified in Judith E. Glazier's work of conversational intelligence, so I am a certified coach in that arena, and I'm also part of what we call the CIQ Europe community, which is made up of a bunch of fabulous coaches around Europe and actually around other parts of the world, that we get together on a yearly basis to continue that good work, and also working on a chapter for a book, whether it's an e-book or whatever, we're still deciding, for a few of us getting together to help continue bringing that work forward.
That's good. Now, what's the Q for in CIQ?
It's conversational intelligence. So if you think about IQ.
Okay.
You know, whether it's emotional IQ, intellectual IQ, this is conversational IQ. So it's conversational intelligence.
Love it.
So it's very neuroscience based. So it's very much about neuroscience. Yeah,
dig into that for us for a bit. I mean, like, come on, conversations are what? Just me speaking to you, you speaking to me? Is there more to that?
Well, they just might be, if we think about how, because I think another big piece of this is our emotional literacy around how we feel when we're speaking to people also. So when we talk about neuroscience and conversational intelligence, we talk about, in reality, we learn a lot when we're at school, but we're not actually taught how to communicate, and what actually is the construct of a conversation. And really, it is about the language we use, the words we use, the emotions and the moods that we're in, and how we actually physically feel in those things. And when we have conversations, we feel a lot of the reactions that we have before we actually speak. So when we think about neuroscience, there's a whole range of chemicals that are firing off in all sorts of directions, depending on what the type of conversation that we're having with someone. So if you think about, there is a research by Stanford University that suggests that 9 out of 10 conversations in the workplace miss the mark. So when we think about that, that is a huge hidden cost in organisations. So what does that mean? How many times have we actually said, can you please go and do X, Y, Z to somebody, and a little while later come back and wonder why that didn't quite go to plan? And it could be that we didn't really ask or make the request very clear. We didn't check in that the other person really understood. But it's a bit more than just that. It's about understanding ourselves and how we actually put ourselves forward energetically.
It immediately gets me thinking, though, from a mathematical standpoint. Most people that work spend a couple, let's say like 10, 12 hours allocated to getting to work and being on work. So that's great. But then you're forced, if you're married, like myself, or in a relationship, that means that relationship is getting, something like 4 to 6 hours of possible conversation. So then how does conversations impact your marriage?
Exactly. All of our relationships, not just work. I mean, nothing in the world gets done without a conversation.
Yeah, and I love it.
Even an internal one.
Ooh, let's talk about that.
We have conversations with ourselves all the time. It never stops. So, we talk about negative thoughts, people having negative thoughts or positive thoughts. Well, that's actually an internal dialogue. That's an internal conversation. And when we talk about the chemicals, we talk about how do we upregulate or downregulate cortisol, for example. So, what triggers me to react in a certain way. So in conversational intelligence, we talk about the 6 brains. They are our gut, our heart, then the brains that we're a bit more familiar with, like our in limbic region, so our oldest brain, where our security guard lives. And for those who understand that, it's our amygdala. And this little guy, he's been there since the dawn of time. And he's there to protect us from saber-toothed tigers and all sorts of things. However, in our modern world, he's there to protect us from other conversations maybe, or reactions. And what we need to do is learn how to keep that one calm and not get into an anxious state. As we move through the emotional parts of our brain into our prefrontal cortex, so our rational thought. So our neocortex is where our memories are stored, and in certain areas, where we create conversations, and then we have our rational thought. So those moments, for example, when we're walking around going, and you're feeling a little bit agitated about something, which means we've got a bit of rush of cortisol or similar type of chemicals being pushed through the system to give us that energy, if we like. However, if it stays there for too long, it's not positive energy. So as we move through, we go, oh, what was I coming into that room for? I need to find something. We might be finding ourselves we're trying to leave the house in a hurry and we've forgotten where the keys are. And that's because our security guards firing, if you like, and our frontal cortex or prefrontal cortex, or the boss, isn't thinking too straight.
It's amazing how quickly those things are going on while you are functioning what seems to be at a normal pace. So the person that's next to you or around you can wonder, like, why are you reacting that way? Absolutely.
So part of conversational intelligence is actually understanding ourselves first, and then going through the motions of understanding, well, if that's happening with us, that might be happening in the other person as well. We also have blind spots. We think that we make perfectly good sense and that what I said should make perfect sense to the person that I'm speaking to. And of course you get a reaction, and when you look at yourself and think, now, why did that person react like that? That's rather interesting. And that's because of something that we may have said. So it might be a blind spot that we have in the way that we communicate with people. People don't listen very well, which is, of course, probably the number one, listening to connect and not just listening to respond.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all of these come into that whole process of conversational intelligence, if you like. We have measurement tools. We can measure what our blind spots are, what is cortisol producing conversational behaviors versus oxytocin, which is the feel-good hormones producing conversational habits that we have. And that's a very interesting conversation when you're coaching somebody, because, particularly if they're struggling in communication, which many of us do in many ways. We can always learn to communicate better. It's certainly a work in progress for me.
Yeah, where can people connect with you? People that want that opportunity to be coached on having a great conversation.
Still my whole name, so karinovari.com.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. And then there were your 2 cats that were with you when we spoke, Mia and Shiloh.
Mia and Shiloh, they're my little sibling sisters who came with me from South Africa. And sadly, Mia went to cat heaven last November, and we still miss her. So Miss Shiloh and I have rediscovered a new normal, and she has completely blossomed. She really was the shy one, but she's come quite out, and she says hello to everybody who comes to the door, which she never used to do. So, sometimes changes us.
Oh, there we go. When you look back, my friend, the decisions that have you where you are today, do you have any regrets?
Regret is such a not a good word. There's certainly some decisions I would have made around the business, particularly on marketing and that type of thing, differently. And so I guess they're just lessons learned. But other than that, no. The interesting question for me, because I've been asking myself that question quite a bit over the last couple of months, because part of me thinks I should be much further down the track than I am, and other side of me thinks, yes, but if you would be, you wouldn't have done things like, working with women entrepreneurs in Malawi, and then maybe going off to the Gambia later this year to do the same sort of work as a group leader. So that's the other sort of work that I'm doing, is working with One World Women. and sharing knowledge between local entrepreneurial women throughout Africa and the Western world, if you like.
That's great. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like measuring success. The easy way to measure success is with the dollar, right? It's really easy to say, okay. But I've spoken to so many individuals, and one of the conversations that kept coming up is even when I got the money, I didn't know what my purpose was. And then I had to circle around to find that and then do that. So, Angel, be careful with looking after the money. So then I wondered, right? So what should you go for? Should you go for the money, or should you go for what is core or to you, to your passions, to what your desire is? And then how do you measure that? And I found that it's daily mindfulness. Like you have to reflect daily on what that is and what it means to you. It's like the self conversation. Again, that's necessary.
Absolutely. About 15 odd years ago, I was in a bit of financial bother, and I got a little bit of money, and I thought, right, I could pay off the debt, or I could go on to a 6-week tour of China and Italy. Now, me being me, I went and did the China to Italy 6-week tour, tripping around. I could have stayed at home and paid off that debt. Now, that money, what would it have given me? What do I remember 15 years later? I remember China and Italy. I wouldn't even know what the debt was. So the money is a really interesting conversation. Yes, we need it, but it's not always a measure of success, but it depends to the individual as well.
I agree. Well, I want to say thank you, my friend. Thank you for being true to who you are, because it has given me selfishly the opportunity to speak with you, not just once, but twice. Knowing that you are continuing in your passion is both motivating and inspiring to me and those listening, that you should go out there and do the thing you desire, and you should make those decisions that may put you on the breadline. But guess what? When you look back, even though there may be a bit of a regret, because I think we're human and we want to measure perfection, I think you are happy, and happiness is a very, very important. So I thank you for that, Karin. In closing, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
I'm just delighted to actually have this opportunity again, and it will be interesting to have the conversation again in 2 to 3 years' time.
Oh, let's do 1 year. Come on.
Let's do 1 year then.
Let's do
I think
1
that's
year.
a wonderful check-in.
All right, my friend. Well, again, amazing audience. KarinOvari.com is where you can connect with her. But Karin, again, a treasure, our pleasure. Thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.